There you go. All right, cool. All right, so my name is Chris Berry, certified financial planner, certified law attorney with Castle Wealth Group, and we do these weekly wisdom webinars every week, uh, unless I'm traveling or something's going on. Uh, but yeah, and so what we do is just answer any questions that are submitted or anything that's kind of popped up over the last week or so. And I always like to start with positive focus, just something positive that's happened over the last week, whether personally or professionally. Um, Personally, just got back from a week-long vacation, kind of celebrating my dad's 80th birthday. He turned 80 December last year, but ended up having like a hip replacement stuff, so I wasn't able to get around. So we just got back from a cruise, so I'm a little bit tan, and kids had a great time, so that was cool. All right, and so we'll get started. And again, if you do have a legal financial tax question, feel free to put it in the Q&A. I didn't actually have anything submitted this week, so really what I was going to do is just talk about kind of two things that have come up as I've been meeting with clients this last week and previously. And so the first one is we've had some questions about some email about 25 minutes ago. All right, let me see. Oh, there it is. Gotcha. Okay. Someone just said they sent an email. I was just coming from a meeting, didn't see it. All right, cool. So we'll get those addressed. Uh, but yeah, so just a couple things that have come up over the last couple weeks in terms of some of my client meetings. And the first one is with regards to like taxes upon death. And this comes up kind of often. Uh, but a lot of times like clients are concerned about like the house and stuff and like now will the kids have to pay taxes on the value of the house or we set up an asset protection trust. I was talking to a client even yesterday and they're getting some bad advice. There's a lot of bad advice out there from people who aren't attorneys or don't have or aren't CFPs. Like they're working with their some person who they've never met in person at Fidelity or something like that. Not to pick on Fidelity, but just understand there's different levels of knowledge. And um, so, yeah, so client was talking to Fidelity and they set up an asset protection trust with us. And they got a letter like written from some guy at their Fidelity account saying, hey, uh, with this type of trust, like the kids are going to have to pay extra taxes or the kids will be taxed at trust tax rates and stuff like that. And it's frustrating for me because like our goal is to make sure our clients have peace of mind that they're clear, comfortable, and confident with their planning. And when you're getting misinformation or bad advice from other people, like it throws it off. And so here's a situation. So let's say we have a house. We bought it for $100,000. We put it into the trust. And now at date of death value, it's valued at $500,000. So a question that sometimes comes up, and I see a lot of misinformation on this, is that, well, now if the kids sell it upon death, they're going to have to pay a ton of taxes. And that's just not the case. So we have what's called step up in basis, meaning that the basis that you originally purchased that house, and it could be stock, it doesn't have to be real estate, but that house, let's say it was valued at $100,000, you bought it 20 years ago. Now it's valued at $500,000. So the original basis is $100,000. So potentially you would think that if the house is sold, there's going to be like a lot of capital gains based on that. But what happens when you pass away and the way that we structure almost all of our trusts, including our asset or castle trust, is that they still get what's called step up in basis. So the new basis isn't what they originally bought the property for or bought that initial stock for. You get step up in basis where now the basis is the value at date of death. So at date of death, that stock or that house is valued at $500,000. That's the new basis. And so if the kids sell right away, there's zero taxes, no inheritance tax, no estate tax, no income or capital gains tax. Um, and this applies to real estate. This applies to post-tax investments like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc. The only place it does not apply is with regards to like retirement accounts, like pre-tax IRAs and 401ks. If you haven't paid any tax, then based on the Secure Act, the kids will have to pay the tax within 10 years. So understands 99 times out of 100, what we're doing is we're not messing with kind of taxes with regards to our trusts. The only times that our trust will have any effect on taxes is if we have an estate tax issue. And right now, estate taxes, the exemption's at like $26 million. Now that's scheduled to drop down to probably 14 million in 2026. So for some of our higher net worth clients that have anywhere from 10 to 20 million, like we are doing some different types of trusts that have some different effects from a tax perspective. But understand any of our trusts are not putting families in a worse position with regards to taxes. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, which is kind of frustrating. And so that's where, like I was talking to a client today, and we're just talking about kind of advice and stuff. And he was like an engineer. And so he's used to like, okay, I'm building a car, like you can kick the tires and stuff. You can see the quality. With advice, it's kind of hard to tell that. And especially with like going into banks and stuff, and everyone has an opinion, everyone has kind of what they think. And that's where you have to feel comfortable with the people that you're working with. And that's why, like, at least for me, that's why I have the designations that I have of a certified outlaw attorney, which is the gold standard as it relates to estate planning and outlaw law. A CFP, which is gold standard as it relates to like financial investment tax planning. So just be mindful of like where you're getting advice, and especially now with like Google and Chat GPT and AI, like there's a lot of opinions out there, whether they're right or wrong or apply to your situation. That could be completely different. So my point is, at least with regards to the planning that we do for our clients, we're not putting them into a negative position with regards to their taxes. Even when we're setting up asset protection trusts, those are taxed at personal income tax rates. You're still getting your step up in basis. So from a tax perspective, and again, understand like we're very mindful of taxes. I always stress that right now, I think taxes are one of the biggest risks and biggest opportunities. So with regards to our trusts, like we're not putting people in worse positions with regards to taxes. So, and again, like when you pass away and on anything that's a post-tax account, you're going to get what's called step up in basis. So all of our trusts qualify as what's called grantor trusts, meaning they're in your social security number, they're taxed at personal income tax rates, you still maintain your homestead, you still get step up in basis. So just something that pops up and just popped up within the last week. All right, so now someone submitted a question. Let me pull these up. And I will share my screen in a moment. And again, if you do have any questions, feel free to put it in the Q&A. But let me share my screen here. Once it opens. And it's just not opening. There we go. So paste it here. Just a second. Okay, now let me share my screen. Nope, share screen. And here we go. All right. So a couple questions were emailed in. If you have a 4-year-old castle trust and add a new chunk of money, does the new chunk of money start its own 5-year look back period? Also about capital gains and dividends paid out investments that are already in the castle trust. All right, so, oops. So the first question here, so the 5-year clock, so Medicaid has a 5-year look back period. And one of the things that our Castle Trust does, an asset protection trust, is it starts that 5-year clock because Medicaid looks back 5 years to see if you moved any money around. And if you have, they're going to penalize you. So what we tell our clients is that when you set up the Castle Trust, that starts the 5-year clock. but really the 5-year clock starts when the asset moves into the trust. So a lot of times we're putting as much as possible into the trust right away, like the real estate. We're doing the deeds at the time of the signing. But let's say you get $200,000 in inheritance that comes into your name, and now you want to put that into the trust. That would have its own 5-year clock. So any new chunk of money has its own 5-year clock. It does not restart the clock for the assets that are already in the trust, but just that new asset moving in has its own 5-year clock tied to it. And I was talking to a client yesterday about this, and they're like, how do they track this? How do they know? Do you have to keep records? You don't. Really what happens is if you were to need nursing home care and apply for Medicaid, they're going to then at that time look back 5 years, and they can pull the last 5 years of your bank statements and see if you moved any money around. And if you have, they're going to penalize you. So if we set up the Castle Trust 10 years ago, we move the majority of the money in, we make it 10 years, great. But then all of a sudden now another $100,000 comes into your name because you won the lottery, you get an inheritance, and now you want to put that $100,000 into the trust. That would have its own 5-year clock. So hopefully that answers that. And then continuing on, also, how about capital gains and dividends paid out from investments that are already in the Castle Trust? Not sure what the question is here, but the big thing is understand that the Castle Trust is a grantor trust, meaning you're taxed at personal income tax. Personal income tax levels. So whether you have a trust or not, that's not going to affect how your capital gains or dividends are taxed. All of this would constitute what's called income versus principal. So income, well, principal would be, let's say you put in $500,000. That's the principal. And then let's say it grows $10,000 over the year, that's income. That income you can take directly out of the trust if you want, or you can decide to leave it into the trust. Either way, you'd have to pay income tax the way you normally do. So understand the Castle Trust does not affect how you handle taxes in any way, because it's a grantor trust and your own Social Security number. All right. All right, and then second question that came in, and again, if you do have any questions, feel free to put it in the Q&A. This is the last one that I have teed up here. What is your opinion on single premium deferred interest annuities? My opinion with a lot of the stuff is that it's a tool. And tools are not good or bad, though I would say like some things like variable annuities, I'm not really a big fan of. As a tool, I don't see a lot of use for them. But big picture, I'm always looking at it as first, what are you trying to accomplish? Then let's pick the strategy and then pick the right tools. So some situation, so now, all right. So I'm always trying to figure out like, what are we trying to accomplish and then figure out the best strategy. So a single premium immediate annuity or a SPIA, and you can have kind of different versions of this. Basically what we're doing is at some time we're turning on a permanent income stream, almost like creating a pension or Social Security. Some situations that we've done this would be sometimes with Medicaid planning, we use these. We've used these in situations where we're leaving an inheritance to someone, but we don't want them to get a lump sum because maybe they'll mismanage it. So we give them income over time. Sometimes we'll use like these types of annuities if there's an income gap in retirement planning. So by income gap, what I'm talking about here is, let's say you have Social Security and a pension of $3,000 per month, okay? But let's say your expenses are $5,000 per month. Well, we could then use a single premium annuity, which could create a monthly income of $2,000 per month, and then now we've closed the income gap for the rest of your retirement. there's some pros and cons to the single premium immediate annuities. First of all, a lot of times you're creating a income tax issue because that's permanent income coming in. So that limits the ability to do things like Roth conversions and stuff like that. Also concerns about inflation. Okay, if we guarantee 2,000 a month for the rest of your life, that's typically going to be locked in at 2,000. And especially what we've seen over the last couple of years is like $2,000 doesn't buy what $2,000 used to buy. Like I even look at our old office before we moved, we had a Five Guys hamburgers right across the street. And prior to the pandemic, I'd go in there, get a hamburger and a soda for like $9, and now it's like $20 walking out of there. So that's it's one of the concerns with the single premium immediate annuities or deferred annuities is that once you turn on that income stream, typically there's not like any plans for inflation. So I'm not against it. It's just a tool. I would first circle back, like, what are we trying to accomplish? And then let's figure out the best strategy and then pick the right tool. So, and I'm really not a big fan of doing these inside of pre-tax IRAs or 401k or pre-tax IRAs because now you're creating like income tax problem basically for the rest of your life. All right, here's a follow-up question. And the follow-up question, I'll put it right here. So new capital gains and Castle Trust don't start a new look-back period. The answer to this would be no. So once the money moves in, so let's say we put in $500,000, that goes into the Castle Trust. Okay, whether we're looking at growth or income, as long as it's inside of the trust, the account's in the trust, so that could grow to $1 million. That's not restarting the 5-year clock because you've already put the asset or the account into the trust. So as long as we keep everything inside of the trust, the Castle Trust, the Asset Protection Trust, that doesn't restart the 5-year clock. Likewise, if we wanted to cash out of one investment, move into another investment, let's say we want to sell our house and buy a condo or something like that, as long as we do it all within the trust, it does not restart that 5-year clock. Right. Any other questions? All right, that's all I got. All right, thank you so much. If you do have questions, feel free to put it in the Q&A. Apologize for being out the last week or so. We had to not do the webinar last week. And actually, I think we had something come up the week before. But we should get back on the schedule. So every Wednesday, if you do have any questions, feel free to put it in the Q&A. Otherwise,